Thunderbolt Ross has definitely seen better days, because after breaking out of Doom's dungeon, only to then be arrested for treason, this now places him at the mercy of a whole new creature entirely. And okay, maybe not a whole new creature, like this is a new take on a character who we have seen before a few times actually, but this time is different. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so coming back, this continues just after Thunderbolt Ross's prison break, when he escaped Doom's think tank dungeon alongside a Machine Man and Deathlok, only to eventually get blasted by a huge antimatter cannon, otherwise known as the Hulkbuster, which forced him back into his regular form, as he was then caught by the US Air Force and arrested for treason. And now this broke up the whole gang, with Machine Man basically getting scrapped, Deathlok getting interrogated, while Ross, he finds himself in a place that's both a prison and a lab. And as it turns out, the person who's running this place just happens to be an old friend of his. But we'll come back to that, because right now at the Department of Defense Waste Disposal Facility, we find Deathlok using some unconventional methods to make his way inside, in hopes of finding Machine Man, who had been basically discarded at this point, because the guy was in bad shape. And at first, this comes off like a searching for a needle in a haystack type of situation. But fortunately, Deathlok runs into a bit of luck when he finds Machine Man on the belt getting ready to be incinerated. And he's able to snatch him up before things get toasty. And I mean, you could say that Machine Man's the lucky one here, but that's more like a glass half full kind of thing. But after saving Machine Man shortly after he comes to, and as more guards close in, Machine Man's like, where's Red Hulk? Because this part was way easier with the big guy's help. But back over with Ross, who's able to Hulk out again. He finds himself in a room that he can't break out of. And as it turns out, at this point, he's been here for about a month. And what they've been doing basically day to day is place him in this room so he could Hulk out every day and burn himself out, so eventually Ross can be more manageable. And it makes sense, because the Red Hulk is basically like a battery, and if Ross isn't able to charge up, then eventually his strength is going to fizzle out. And during this time, he says here, rage doesn't feel like an adequate description because it's mixed up with a sense of betrayal and disgust and even defeat. It's one thing to be a prisoner of your enemy. It's another to be a prisoner of the country you've given everything to. And really, that's the thing that's eating at him the most about this, because like we saw back in issue 4, when Ross found out about Doom taking over the US and its military by way of treaty agreement, he felt like his country had truly turned on him. And Ross is also aware of how more recently more people have disapproved of Doom, but even still to him, it seems like the US has just accepted Doom as their leader without putting up any kind of fight. And it got even worse in issue 5 when the lieutenant told Ross to his face that he was in violation of this treaty, because now it just seems like everyone's okay with bending a knee to Doom, which again just fed into the idea of his country turning its back on him. And after these weeks that have passed, that's all he's had to think about. But eventually he finds himself being greeted by US First Sergeant Tamika Bowden. And now at first she just shows up with an inhibitor collar, telling him to put it on and how they're gonna go for a walk. And aside from that, all she really tells him is that someone's requested a meeting with him. And at first, Thunderbolt Ross is like, man, it better be a lawyer, because since his arrest, he knows that he's been here for at least a month, and he's been denied any kind of representation. But this whole time, she doesn't really answer any of his questions. She's like, I can't speak to that, just following orders. But along the way, she takes him to the yard so he can get 1 minute outside. And the first thing he's thinking is that there's no way this could have been her orders, because it would seem as if her superior officer wouldn't want Thunderbolt Ross to be exposed to any type of radiation. And he takes advantage of that. But also he's able to tell the location of this facility just by taking a look around and recognizing the Blue Ridge Mountains, so now he also knows where he is. But then he tells her, there's a reason you weren't supposed to take me outside, First Sergeant. Then he's like, I'd normally consider it unforgivable to hit a woman, but, and I'm gonna tell you, this dude got a running start and he got both hands back like he about to yoke on her. And I mean, the attack, that's one thing, but for him to say what he said just before, it's like, come on man, that don't make it any better. But either way, Thunderbolt Ross takes off on her, 2 hands behind the head from the free throw line, only for her to stop his attack with 1 hand. And she's just like, but? I'm like, but what? What was the rest of it? And tell him like, hey, I was just trying to show you some kindness. And this was fairly easy for her to do because she has a bionic arm. And man, I gotta say, it's one thing that Ross's attack didn't work, but for him to say what he said just before, you can't take that back, dog. And now as they continue to this meeting, Ross notices the smell of salt water, with it leaking from one of the walls, and all she tells him is that this place is new and it's going through some growing pains. But as they continue, the next thing he sees is a tank full of super swole shark men. So now he's like, okay, you guys got a cell meant to withstand a Hulk, a reinforced fishbowl full of shark men, a guard with a steel exoskeleton. Is this a prison or a lab? And her answer is basically yes, because she's like, are you General Ross or Red Hulk? So right there just lets you know this place is definitely both. But that's not enough for him. He wants to hear the straight answer. So he goes on to ask what branch funds this facility and who's her superior officer. And as she opens the door to where this meeting's about to take place, she tells him, "You know each other well as I understand it." And when they walk in, it's Captain Riker standing right there, who's still very much alive after his super convincing death scene back in issue 3, where dude jumped off the cliff only to be bombarded with force lightning by a swarm of Doombots. And he doesn't shy away from it either. And with how this plays out, you can just tell Captain Riker is itching to give his twisty mustache supervillain speech, where he's like, "Oh, I'm sure you're wondering how I did it." Like, man, all he's missing is a chair to spin around in with a cat. And I bet you this dude was in here practicing before they got here. But before he gets too deep into any of the details, Captain Riker tells First Sergeant Bowden that she can go. And at first she's kind of like, "Are you sure?" You know, in case Ross tries something again. But Riker just tells her that he's sure. So she leaves, and right off the bat, Ross wants to know what's going on here. Like, what is this? So Captain Riker tells him, "You're not the only one putting those discretionary funds to use. This base, Project Alpha, is devoted to the bleeding edge of bioweaponry." And now this is where Ross tells him, "Last I saw, you were shoving me off a mountain. And last I heard, you got what you deserved." And Captain Riker's basically like, oh, so what did you hear? That I was fried by force lightning? Because when I said it earlier, I was joking, but I was a little serious. Like, he actually said that. Like, who's this guy think he is? Palpatine? Mace Windu? Matter of fact, did Mace survive? Somebody let me know in the comments. Check on that man. But he asked Ross here if he heard that he was fried by force lightning or executed by Doombots, and he tells him it was close, but sorry to disappoint. I'm still here. So next, when Ross tells him that nobody gets out of a situation like that without cutting a deal, Riker tells him, "Let's not be hasty with the accusations. Haven't you heard? You're the traitor, Ross." And those words were enough to push Ross to the point where he had to hit him with the Thunderbolt, that is Thack attack. And that's something that's expected to happen at some point in time when you're dealing with an Omega level rage baiter. Because this is where he tells Ross, "I deserved that. But you're going to have to get used to doing what you're told. Because you're no longer the only commanding officer with a weapon of a body. You will obey Captain Simon Riker, and you will fear the Warwolf." And now originally, the Warwolf had shown up in Astonishing Tales issue 26, when Captain Riker converted Deathlok's old friend, Mike Travers, using technology similar to that which was used to create Deathlok. And now in One World Under Doom, we're told that this Deathlok's from another universe, though he's already mentioned before that he also has a Simon Riker in his universe. But back in Astonishing Tales, there was also this thing where Deathlok didn't want to fight his old war buddy, so he had a bit of an internal conflict there. But in this case, with it being Simon Riker, who had nearly died and used these enhancements on himself, you know, nobody really likes this guy. So everybody wants to fight him, but now he can fight back. But given the way we went into this whole reveal with him turning himself into the Warwolf, it kind of looked like Captain Riker not only wanted to set the stage to reveal his new enhancements, but also kind of rub it in Ross's face before viciously attacking him in a weakened state. But you gotta give it to Thunderbolt Ross, because he still fights back. But for a quick moment here, when we go back over to Deathlok and Machine Man, who've made their escape from the Department of Defense disposal facility. But given the shape that Machine Man's in, Deathlok's gotta do some repairs, so he breaks into this auto shop to work on them. But given the fact that Deathlok is more familiar with analog components, he basically tells Machine Man like, "Hey, I'm just gonna stick to what I know here," which is the basic gears and bolts, but it's enough to get Machine Man on his feet, because he still needs to replace some processors, but for now he's functional. And Machine Man goes on to tell Deathlok that he's been running a series of algorithms in an attempt to locate Red Hulk. And it's like, given the circumstances and the type of prisoner that Red Hulk is, there are no records of his detainment, but even still, Machine Man was able to narrow down Thunderbolt Ross's location using the information that he could find. Because he goes on to say here, a sudden and erratic shift in seismic readings has been sourced outside of Langley, Virginia. The dates of this anomaly follow our extraction from Latveria. And right there is like, man, let me find out Ross was beating down them walls in Morse code. And I mean, that's not exactly the case. I'm sure the shockwaves is more than enough. But anyway, all that sounds crazy. So Machine Man just tells Deathlok, "Get in, I'll drive." And they make their way out there. Meanwhile, with Thunderbolt Ross, this man is fighting for his life. And even now he's thinking, there's a monster inside of me. There's a monster inside all of us. Some of us are owned by the monster. Some of us try to ignore it, pretend it isn't there. I use it as a weapon. I might be trapped in an aging body, but my mean goes a long way. Thunderbolt Ross doesn't need Red Hulk to fight, the same as a soldier doesn't need a tank. But it sure makes things easier. When I transform into Red Hulk, I feel like I've flung open the doors and windows of myself. Like I could reach my arms around the equator and breathe in all the wind in the world. But then he's like, this right here? This is the opposite. I'm being crumpled up and crushed down to blackness. Because even though Ross is willing to put up a fight, he needs the Red Hulk to take on the Warwolf. And as far as Riker is concerned, if Ross doesn't want to cooperate, he's either going to find a way to replicate the Red Hulk or just completely destroy Ross's mind. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and let me know what you guys think about Captain Riker's return and upgrade. And I'll also say, anytime I think of Warwolves, my mind goes to the ones from the Excalibur issues and the X-Men the Animated Series, even though the Astonishing Tales version is much older. But yeah, things are looking pretty bad for Ross because he doesn't quite have enough juice to punch his way out of this one. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.